as promised, we are going to take a little bit of a stroll down memory lane as set to air this weekend on WIVB TV, Channel 4 here in Buffalo, and WROC TV in Rochester, the re-airing of the 2011 Week 3 barn burner between the Bills and the Patriots here at the Bills Stadium. Sunday, September 6th, 12 noon will be the airtime on WIVB TV here in Buffalo and WROC TV in Rochester. And here to join us to relive that historic upset victory, number 19 in your program, number 43 in your program, but number 1 in everyone's hearts, Donald Jones and Bryan Scott, two of the guys who had pretty big impact performances in that game. Guys, how the hell are you? We haven't seen you in forever.
Hey, happy Thursday, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Yeah, man, it's good. It's good to be back on the show. I feel good.
Yeah, so good to see you guys, of course. And, you know, let's just kind of set the table a little bit here, Steve, because for fans that may not have been old enough to remember or don't have a great memory, you know, this 2011 season got off to a rousing start. The team is just coming off a huge comeback win over the Raiders, which was another barn burner game and a high-scoring affair. And I think we all remember Ryan Fitzpatrick screaming like a girl after, I think it was the touchdown to David Nelson, where his voice went frighteningly high, and it was recorded because he was mic'd up, and people didn't know what the heck happened to him. So here we come in the next week, and it's Bills-Patriots, and we know how too many of those games had gone. And so I think there was this cautious optimism among the fan base. But my question to you guys is, what was the anticipation like in the locker room that practice week leading up to this Week 3 game?
Well, B. Scott, I'll let you go first.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Well, for us, it was just an exciting time. Anytime we got a chance to square up against Tom and the Patriots, we were always just excited. And I know history didn't really show it, but, you know, we were always fired up. And this year, it felt a little different, actually. A lot of times we would go into it thinking, no, we can do this. And, you know, the games were sometimes a lot closer than what the score led to. But coming off of a big win against Oakland and going into this game, there was just a different feel to that season. And I think, you know, as the game went on, we went down. You know, it was we were behind, and, you know, we were able to turn the tide and come back and win. So it was just a huge win in week for us.
How about you, Don?
Yeah, I think so. On the offensive side of the ball, I mean, we were feeling kind of good about ourselves. We had been scoring points. We came back the week before. Anytime you play up against the Patriots up there in Buffalo, you know, it's kind of like an added sense of, I don't even know what it is, what word to even use for it. But you guys, they still go through it right now. When it's Patriots week, it's like everything shuts down. It's Patriots week. That's all that matters. So in that week, it like B. Scott said, it felt like, you know, we can actually play with these guys. And, you know, we had to focus up, get ready for the game. We felt like the Patriots were going to score points. No, you know, nothing towards B. Scott, but they always do, you know, in defense. But they always do. They score points. It really just came down to being able to make the plays when you make the plays at the end of the game, and that's what we were able to do.
And this is you're playing these Patriots. This is, you know, obviously Tom Brady. This is the team with Welker, Gronkowski, Ocho Cinco, Danny Woodhead, Julian Edelman, Stephen Ridley. They got some guys that that were pretty renowned around the National Football League. In this game, Welker had 20 targets. I mean, we all, you know, I mean, there was – it makes you want to stick needles in a voodoo doll, right? I mean, you hope the guy, you know – but that's the way that team operated, and it was just a clockwork. So what was the mindset going in? You're going to play these guys. You know Welker's going to do that. You know Ocho Cinco's on the field. Gronkowski is like 9 feet tall. You know,
right.
A little, you know, talk about the scouting report trying to go up against this team that was, you know, a perennial Super Bowl contender.
Well, on the defensive side of the ball, it was make them beat us. Don't give them anything. Don't give up the big plays. And, you know, the Patriots, they would always find ways to win. But there was also a lot of games the Patriots won where the other team just broke down. And so that was really the focus that entire week was Don't give up the big play. Let them dig down, and if they're going to beat us, make them beat us. Don't give them anything. You know they're going to make some plays here and there, but limit it. Don't let it get out of hand.
It's funny when you name all of those guys, Steve. It's like, man, I feel old now,
Yeah,
because
right.
there are a lot of people who don't even know, they don't even really remember who Wes Welker was. And it's really Julian Edelman to the younger fans. Julian Edelman is that guy. He's been killing us for years, but before Julian Edelman, there was Wes Welker, and he's the one that started everything out in that slot position up there in New
Right,
England.
and he scored the first touchdown in the game. Drayton Florence kind of falls down on the route, and so it's a walk-in for Welker to get up 7-0, and then Gronk scores back-to-back touchdowns on drives, and suddenly it's 21-0. Now, Stevie gets the touchdown to make it 21-7, and it's late in the first half, okay, and Danny Woodhead's going out in the right flat, and B. Scott's got him. And fortunately for you, you get an opportunity kind of handed to you there, and you were able to react quick enough and get a pick, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it was one of their plays. Danny came out of the backfield, almost like a quick little check down, and I was just trying to get out to him as quick as possible. When I saw that ball kind of just pop off his shoulder pad, man, I picked it up. I was trying to get up and stay in bounds, but my momentum carried me out of bounds. But it was just enough of momentum because I think we took it down and we scored on that, right?
Yeah, you
And
guys
then
got a
that
field
kind of
goal
like
off
set
that
the
right
tempo
before
for the rest
half.
of the game.
Yeah, you got a field goal on that right before the end of the half. Lindell put it up and through with 3 seconds left, and then suddenly, a 21-point deficit was cut to 11, and then you guys get a pick coming out of the locker room too on Brady, and then the comeback is kind of on from there. And I don't know if you guys realize this, but Tom Brady in a New England uniform only had 6 4-interception games in his career. 2 of them were against the Bills, including this one.
Which is, man, that secondary, when you look back on it, Leotis, Drayton, G. Wilson back there, Jay Bird, it was a really good secondary. And then obviously that front four just getting pressure on. So, you really got to hand it to those guys. Kind of kept Brady moving the whole time, tried to keep him guessing. And obviously Tom, he's always going to be Tom, but it was just one of those days where we were able to get the best of him.
Yeah, those days don't come along very often. But
No, they
describe
don't.
now in a year like this, where there's not going to be any fans in the stands. I'll never forget because I watched this game on the television, and the crew did a really nice job of showing the reaction of the because by this time they're 10 years into this run of Brady, and people were absolutely losing their minds in the stands. It was crazy in the stands. You remember that day in the
Well, because the
atmosphere?
last time they had beaten him was the 2003 game in the opener when Brady also threw 4 picks. And I don't know what you guys – just getting home after that win, whether you're going home to family or your phone's blowing up, what was it like after the victory, like in terms of your phone
blowing up? Well, yeah. DJ, go ahead, sir.
Well, to go back to, the pick that B. Scott had, it's funny. I was talking to one of my boys yesterday. He's a high school coach down here. And we were talking about just momentum shifts throughout the course of a game and how, as a player, even as a fan, sometimes you can feel it, and it's like at that time when you caught that interception, it was still like 21-7, but it was something about it where it was just like, oh man, you can actually feel it. And we've been on the other side of it so many times with the Patriots on the downside of it, where it's just like something happens and then all of a sudden the crowd is either in it or out of it, depending on if you're home or away. And then it feels like they're getting every bounce. The ref is giving them every call, everything. And it's like nothing can go your way,
right?
And in that game, it was like almost everything was going our way. Because I remember at the end of the game on offense, there was a pass interference that David Nelson got that went our way to get us down right before the field goal. And David actually ran the wrong route. He lined up in the wrong place and ran the wrong route. And I ended up having to line up. You guys might hear my kids yelling in the background. But anyway, I ended up lining up, and I had to line up in his spot and figure out what his route was, and then he ended up getting the pass interference. But that's what it's crazy, man. It's like that day, everything just happened to bounce our way, and that's how it is in football. The ball will bounce your way, and other days it just doesn't.
and we would probably be remiss if we didn't mention that Donald had a 100-yard receiving game in that one, and the biggest play he made was a 48-yarder. I believe it was down the left sideline. Do you remember that route and how you won so early on it?
Yeah, it was a stop and go against Devin McCourty, and it's in scouting report. And me just knowing him from New Jersey, as he's from down here in New Jersey, I knew he liked to. At that point, I think he was still playing corner at that point.
Yes, he
liked
was.
to jump routes. And so we ran a double move on him, and it ended up working out. And I caught the ball down the sideline, and that was, I guess the rest was history. But as you guys talked about afterwards, I actually went home. I went home, right? I flew home after that game because I think we might have went into a bye week. So I flew back home, and I remember being in Fridays. I went to Fridays with my father, and I remember the highlights from the game were on TV, and I'm sitting there with some people from here that didn't know me. And they were like, yo, this is crazy. They looked at me, they're like, yo, the Bills are actually good this year. And I was like, yeah, they are actually good this year. and then
Actually,
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that number 19, he's
it
pretty good too. You may want to keep an eye on him, right?
It was crazy. And then we went downhill from there. It was terrible.
Right. Yeah. So now that you go look back on it, and you guys watched it, you experienced it, you've gotten some shots in on this Patriot thing. And Tom Brady, and you said he feel old. The guy's still playing.
Well, so is Fitz.
And now Gronk is back, still playing.
Yes.
And McCourty is still playing. Some of those guys have really put together long careers. And you look back on it, you think, how do you feel about it now? You look back on it so many years later. It's almost a decade.
It is for me. When I came into the league, B. Scott was already ancient.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Look out. I'm going to duck.
Oh, man.
Hit the
when
deck.
I met him, I was like, dang, you've been in the league how long? That's crazy, man. And, even Brady had been in the league for years. Like, I was watching Brady. I was in high school. He was already in the NFL, And so to be on the field with him was amazing. And to see him still playing and even really still playing at a high level. And people try to, they talk about it falling off and all that stuff. But for him, I still think he's going to have a good season at a high level this year with Gronk down there and the rest of those guys. Devin McCourty, all of those guys are still having good careers, man. It's amazing. That TB12 diet.
Yeah.
It definitely is. And so Tom, me being a Penn Stater and Tom going to Michigan, we squared off when we were in college. And, to still see him doing it, I'm really excited to see not just how he does, but Gronk coming back out of retirement. And the biggest thing is, as long as you're having fun and you're healthy, then that's all that really matters. So hats off to them, but it's also a testament to how they live their lives, not just on the field, but off it, just taking care of themselves, being able to avoid that injury bug, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
B. Scott, I do have to ask you, because I think we all know the following week, Drayton Florence's interception return for a touchdown is what wound up on the cover of Sports Illustrated that week, at least regionally. Yeah. I don't think it was national, but regionally, that was the cover of Sports Illustrated as Drayton's going into the end zone with, I think, what was the fourth interception of the game. What's it like in the defensive meeting room the following week or even the week after? I can't remember if you had a bye or not, when, the defense gets the props, because I think we all know that offense tends to get more of the pub when a team's doing well, and more of the love. So what was it like in the defensive meeting room that week when you see Drayton Florence on the cover of SI?
It was big. We had copies handed out to everybody, and I put it right on my living room table. It sat there the entire season. It was just a really cool feeling. After that game, he talked about it. So even just leaving the tunnel, fans crowded around. How you walk out to your car afterwards, and I saw fans that were literally in tears. Thank you so much. It was just a huge moment. But the thing about football is that you can never dwell on it too long. So I can tell you what, we came in that next day, we went through our film, and then it was like, all right, y'all, we got to move on to the next.
Right.
And the only other thing, sorry, Donald, the only other thing I wanted to run by you guys was, you talked about how it went downhill. It didn't go downhill right away, Donald. You guys did get off to a 5-2 start. And then, that injury kind of is what killed you guys. Fitz has the injury with his ribs. I think Fred breaks his leg. And it just seemed like the offense lost all of its traction and point-producing potential. Can you guys contemplate, even for a second, if you didn't get bit by the injury bug with some key offensive pieces, maybe how that season may have unfolded differently?
Man, if we didn't have, especially on the offensive side with Fitz and Fred, if we didn't have those obviously your quarterback ribs, that's kind of tough to play through.
Yeah.
If he has to throw the ball, and then with Fred being your number one guy, the leader of the team, with him going down, it's hard to play through certain things like that. Obviously the great teams are the ones that are able to make it happen. I think for us, we really did have a young team at that time. We had
Yeah.
some ancient guys like B. Scott, but we had a young team. We had, we had, I mean, even still, Stevie Johnson was young. He was really just coming into himself, a star in the league. And I think it's one thing to start out hot. It's another thing to now understand that, okay, now everybody's going to be gunning for you, and you have to do things. You got to, kind of hone in on the process moving down the line every game, week in and week out, even with guys going down, so that you can pull through those victories. And I think we were young and just weren't able to overcome them.
Yeah, losing your quarterback or getting him nicked up and losing the key guys, particularly a guy like Fred.
Fred was going to go to the Pro Bowl that
Right,
year. I mean,
Freddie
he was killing it.
Yeah.
The loss of Freddie
no question.
for a
Yes.
guy like that was particularly a guy like Fred. And I don't know, you guys tell us, how important was his voice in the locker room to then just be plucked out, go down with a busted leg, and it leaves a hole in the conversation in the locker room, right? I mean, you missed that guy.
Yeah, so Steve, it does. But DJ just hit the nose. He was absolutely correct. Is that the great teams, they figure out how to just keep rolling. And I used to always say this, and I think I got it from Coach Tomlin, that you have your starters, and then on the team, then you have your starters in waiting. And those are the guys that aren't seeing the field, but they're just waiting for an opportunity. So when they see the field, they got to step in and play just as well, if not better, than the guy that they replaced. And injuries happen all the time, right? And yes, it was a blow. I do think being young kind of played a part in it, because it was early on success, and it was, with the injuries, but how do you refocus and regroup and just keep rolling? And that was something that we weren't able to do. But yeah, we started really, really fast. And I do remember there were times in the locker room where they were talking 5-2. Oh man, we just got to win a couple of more, we're getting into the playoffs. And it's like, no. We still have a whole other half of football to be played, and crazy things like that have happened where guys don't think they're going to get in, and at the end of the season they get in, and guys that are hot, teams that are hot, they don't get in. So I do think that played a huge part in it.
And then
I remember,
real quick.
Oh
yeah, go ahead.
I remember just the national media coming in town after that, and that was the first time. This was my second season. Just national reporters coming in town. You see, like, people that you see on TV. We were used to the local guys, but now it was like national media. And for us young guys, it was like, oh man, all right, this is a little bit different than what we were used to.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to touch on too was the play at the end of the game. So Fred makes that big play, and initially he's called in the end zone touchdown, and then they mark him down at the 1 yard line. That kind of proved to be a blessing in disguise, because you were able to kind of run the clock down so that Brady couldn't get another crack with the football, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was it was a. You never want to give the ball back to Brady. I'm sorry, I don't care if everything is rolling your way. It doesn't matter. You rather just have the ball to the end. So yeah, it was a blessing.
Yeah, there's 145 left. I mean, he's done a lot of damage with a lot less time than that.
Exactly. So
right.
You wanted to be able to run that thing down.
There is. I don't know if you guys have this clip, but after Ryan Lindell hit that field goal. B. Mormon jumping up on his shoulders.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know Brian Mormon had some hops like that.
Oh, yeah, he ran track. He was like a hurdle guy in college.
He almost leapfrogged him when he was standing straight up. Mormon almost leapfrogged over him in the celebration.
Over him, right.
Yeah, and and it's one of those games that for me, I played in them too. Like, they stick with you. Those games stick with you. And I think, too, from what you said, it was one of those things where you were so excited about it. It was such a big win. You almost had a hard time gathering it back up, because the next week you lost your first game going down to Cincinnati. And I think it's one of those things where, you talk about the emotion of it kind of sapping it out of you, the national media coming in, you're a little bit distracted. talk about, what happens if you lose a close one or you play them tough. Is it almost better for you going forward because you've got to keep your nose on the grindstone, or did you guys let your foot up off the gas and drop the next one?
No, we've been on both sides of that, winning that big game, but we've also been in the games with the Patriots where we've lost nail biters at the end, and man, oh my goodness. But again, just finding the way, and coaches will always tell you, Coach Gailey would always say it too. You can never be too high. You can never be too low. You got to stay even keeled. And whether it's a big win or a big loss, learn from it or enjoy it for a moment, and then let's move on.
See, I think when you start out as hot as we did, and we weren't coming off of seasons where we were necessarily used to winning games like that on a regular basis. And then we start out so hot, and now the national media is in town, and now everybody's feeling good. Drayton's on the cover of SI. You got Stevie is Why So Serious and all types of stuff. I mean, it's crazy. I think we were the goon squad on offense, the receivers and Fitz and Fred. I think, it's a lot to deal with at that time. And so you I'm getting calls at the same time here on FaceTime. It's a lot to deal with, and I think that you have to be able to, like B. Scott said, you got to be able to just stay even keel. Don't get too high, don't get too low. We were high after that game. Emotionally, I mean, you go home and your phone is blowing up, but it's like, whew, my blood pressure was high just because it's like, yo, you don't understand how that feels being on the field out there, man. Yeah. So now you got to come back the next week and do it all over again, and you end up dropping one.
Yeah. Well, listen, guys, we appreciate the time and you kind of sharing some personal insights from the field and how the emotions swung in that game. I know the fans are going to enjoy watching it again on WIVB TV here in Buffalo on Channel 4 and WROC TV in Rochester, as it will re-air on September 6th at 12 noon, and it will be brought to you by Connors and Ferris. So, Bryan, Scott, Donald Jones, great to see you guys. Good luck staying safe and healthy here through the rest of this COVID debacle we're all dealing with, but it's great to see your guys' faces. Thanks for helping us out in reliving this one.
Thanks for having us, guys. I appreciate it. Great seeing you guys as well.
You guys stay warm up there. It's going to be cold next week.
Get the hell out of here.
Hey, you guys look great. Thanks for coming on.
There's always a dig. There's always a dig. We should call Donald Jones' first initial stands for dig. It doesn't stand for Donald, because there's always one or two in there. He already hit B. Scott up, and now he's hitting us on the weather.
There you go.
So
great seeing you guys.
Good to see you guys. Get the hell out of here.
All right,
Bryan
guys.
Scott, Donald Jones joining us.